Welcome back to Sharks and Coffee. I am your host, Dr. Jaws, and this is a complete do-over. I recorded about 2 hours of material the other night on Shark Attack, and it got way too real and way too deep, and I was not happy with the end result. For a couple reasons. One, it just got uncomfortable because Shark Attack is a very complicated topic. It's been oversimplified by a lot of different people, and my brain just scattered, basically. It just went to all these different directions, like philosophy, biology, like death, and it got crazy. And it really did not have a clear narrative. And I know, as I said at the very beginning of the season, I wanted to be as real and live as possible and casual as possible, but it got heavy. And I don't know. I don't think it was worth actually committing to those episodes. The other problem was audio quality on my part, not the equipment's part, but human error, was happening where, this is a stupid public speaking thing, but I kept saying right all the time, and I really hate that. So it literally, like, a clip would be, like, shark attacks are dangerous, right? Or, but like, this is not here, right? Or like, blah, 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 right, like, and it's very annoying. And I know in the previous episodes I've done that with like. A lot of people, especially my generation, they say like a lot, and it irritates a lot of different people, and I get that. I completely get that. We can't help it, but I get that. Like, and right, and other words that people hold on to. So it was driving me a little bit nuts, and I could have just gone ahead and be like, yeah, we'll just put it out there. Who cares what other people say? And then but it matters. It really matters. Even though this is a super casual show, I don't want to make crappy things. So anyway, and yet I'm still slurping. Trademark slurp all the time. Oh my gosh. Like, a goal I want to be the first person to slurp on a radio podcast thing and get away with it. That would be fantastic. So, anyway, moving on. How do we do this? Because I think I want to close the season out with Shark Attack. I want to try this again. But how do we proceed? And I'm thinking the best way to maybe do this is talk about the sharks, like open up with the sharks that are responsible for the most amount of shark attacks, which I call the Fatal Four, and I'll get to them in a second. Then continue with maybe we'll talk about what a shark attack, maybe the dynamics of shark attack, like what it is, why it's so embedded in our psyche. And then finally, we'll conclude with reactions to it. I was kind of inspired to do this because there's now two events. There was one event in Australia. There was a shark attack incident. It was a fatal incident in Australia, I think a week ago. And then now, either recently or rehashing, there was a surfer who's getting a lot of flack because his friend was killed by a shark, and also in Australia, but then this surfer asked for a shark call. So it's kind of getting a lot of buzz now, and I thought that story was an older story. I thought that story was a month ago, but it's getting some traction again. So it's always been a relevant topic. It's a very relevant topic. So yeah, I think this will be a great way to close the series because it's complicated. Yeah. So, without further ado, let's talk about the Fatal Four. Oh my god. I giggle a lot too. You probably noticed that. I really hope I don't giggle. That was another thing I was noticing. Like, I was giggling a lot when talking about Shark Attack, and it's just, that's really wrong. And it clearly shows how removed I am from it, right? But I think a lot of people, it becomes seized by pop culture so much and by media so much that it really is this weird very removed phenomenon. So, yeah, but the sharks responsible for attacks, like the most number of attacks, there are about 30. 30 sharks have been responsible for either provoked or unprovoked shark attacks. And statistically, that is a tiny number, right? There are 512 sharks in the world, but only 30 of them are known to have attacked people. And most of those 30 are what I would call potentially dangerous, meaning that they really, it takes an extraordinary circumstance or a provocation for them to bug you. Most sharks are afraid of people, especially scuba divers. Sharks do not like scuba divers. They think they're really creepy, deformed looking seals, so they like to stay away from them, for the most part, right? But there are four species that are not afraid. There are four species that are huge and curious and carnivorous, opportunistic predators. I mean, all sharks are carnivorous technically, but like these four are very unique in their biology, in the sense that they have a unique, one thing that unites them that people take for granted is that they have a unique set of teeth, like that large triangular, in the case of the tiger shark, heart-shaped serrated teeth that are perfectly designed for shearing away giant amounts of flesh from whales, cracking into sea turtles, mammals, any like terrestrial mammals that wander into the water. These sharks handle a wide variety of prey, and that's unique in the shark world, right? We don't think it is because of culture, but it is. So anyway, so yeah, these four species are very unique in being opportunistic predators with this giant dentition, huge body size, and proximity to people. They have access to people in a way that other shark species really don't. So, yeah. So without further ado, we should probably talk about them. The most famous, or infamous, obviously, is Carcharodon carcharias, the white shark. In Australia, it's known as the white pointer. In the United States, it's the great white. And this is the shark in Jaws, and you almost definitely know that already. But, yeah, white shark. So, white shark, by the numbers, has been implicated in the most number of shark attacks, but with the fatal four, they're all equally dangerous in my book, personally. I think it's kind of silly to look at the numbers in the sense that you really can't rank them. I've seen shows that try to rank sharks, but it's kind of stupid for two reasons. One, shark attacks are super rare, so the rankings aren't really important because they're all statistically insignificant. It's a freak accident. But then number two is that with the unprovoked attacks, like sand tiger sharks, they're like number 5 in the rankings technically, but sand tiger sharks are famous for being docile, right? Aquariums love sand tiger sharks. I would never call that a flat-out dangerous species, right? But the other four, like white sharks and and tiger sharks and the other two I'll get to in a second, their biology is unique, and their biology is very, very different, and it lends to them being dangerous. They're literally dangerous animals, this is starting to unravel. This is where it gets complicated, because we have people in the world who we have this current narrative of love the sharks are our friends, blah blah blah, which is great. That is wonderful, but sometimes I think that narrative has gone to excess, where people forget to respect the danger element. Sometimes people kind of have this little pet mentality when it comes to approaching dangerous shark species, kind of taking their power for granted. So anyway, but getting back to the white shark. The thing about the white shark is that it's a coastal species. It's gigantic, but it really does love to be around the coast. It does shoot out into the open ocean occasionally, but it is a big giant predator, loves to pick on seals, tuna, massive animal. And it's it has been claimed to be one of the most intelligent sharks because of its body size and its brain size, and it exhibits an interesting curiosity. Like a lot of great white sharks, Rodney Fox, for example, who's very, very famous in the white shark world, he said and has observed that they have different personalities, kind of. That some are very shy and they leave people alone, and then some are very curious and invasive. And a lot of cases, the shark attacks with the species are, of mistaken identity. And you've probably heard this before, but they see someone on a surfboard and it looks like a seal, and the curious shark will check it out, go after it, and it might be a food source, right? So, because there's a couple different ideas out there. One being that sharks like to investigate with their mouths, which is true. But then there's another truth to it that being a generalist, meaning that you eat a wide variety of prey, you are opportunistic to the point where if you do see a human on a surfboard, and even to correctly identify it as a human, it still might be a direct prey item. A great example of this is tiger sharks with albatross, right? Albatross is not really part of the tiger shark's natural ecosystem. It's an animal that, occasionally is in the water, and tiger sharks still lunge after albatross, right? And tiger sharks also lunge after garbage cans and trash and stuff like that. But anyway, so white sharks are curious, white sharks are huge, opportunistic, and even if it's a curiosity bite or an investigative bite, they are so huge and powerful, and the jaws, they're so massive, the bite force is incredible, and the teeth, again, they are beyond razor blades. That's like, you hear that all the time, that shark teeth are like razor blades, but that's actually a true thing. That's not an embellishment. If you've ever worked with shark jaws, you know that, like, hey, you gotta be careful when you clean them, because you can get cut. I've been cut on sandbar shark jaws. Sandbar sharks have very sharp, but not huge teeth, right? But white sharks, it's gigantic. It's very, that is a fatal thing. They're fatal. They're fatal blades. They're fatal teeth. An investigatory bite is still very dangerous. The power behind it is nothing. I'm sorry, I got that mixed up. Our power is really like nothing compared to that. That shears through flesh extraordinarily well, and it's something we should not lose sight of, right? It's something to meditate on and not forget. That, because like an animal that size and with that capability, that is something that can end your existence, right? This is where it got heavy last time I tried to record, and this is where it really gets tricky to talk about, because this is not about an animal eating like a gazelle or a whale, something that we can't relate to. This is an incident, any kind of shark attack, and any any fatal interaction between white sharks and people, that involves the end of a human life. And again, fatal interaction. People have lived through shark attacks. People have, been bumped by sharks and nothing's happened. People have lost limbs but have still lived. But there are people, obviously, who have also lost their life to a shark. And because it is people, because it is our species, which is very, it gets really tricky. Even what I'm saying right now, you can't approach humans as Homo sapiens. You can, but it gets a lot more personal, because this is part of our tribe, if you will. This is our family. This is the human family, right? That is something we completely emulate with, the victim and the victim's family or friends or circle, right? Because we know that the victim is a person, and that the person, is a daughter, a friend, it's a person, and depending on what you believe, it's a soul. And see how it gets tricky to talk about? And one thing too is when you see the comments on recent shark attacks, you know, as in this day and age where you have internet and anyone can say anything they want to, people forget about it. It's very obvious that people forget about it. One of the worst comments I ever read was that some guy wrote, "This is what happens when apes go into the water," right? And obviously, that is a very, very ignorant statement because you dehumanize the situation, right? You know, there is something grave to the human element with a shark attack, right? Because it's a human, right? And you know, it's not like if a bonobo or a chimpanzee was killed by a shark, it's scary and sad and everything, but we will never relate to it the way we relate to a fellow human. You know, we will never understand that experience the way, like, we are very unique as a species and as a culture in the sense that we can project ourselves in that situation. We can emulate and empathize with that situation. We understand, we can make a predictive scenario, like you know, like anyone who's scared of sharks does this, right? Anyone who's terrified of sharks just puts himself in a situation, being in the water, and then something completely out of nowhere, something in an alien medium lunges and puts everything to an end, right? It's a terrifying concept. It's a horrifying concept. It's part of what makes sharks so fascinating in our culture is the fact that sharks are like a perfect blend of terror and horror, right? Terror. I mean, and when I say sharks, I just mean these 4 species, right? Like not all sharks, right? But the 4 species, like the terrifying part is that they are at home in a world you don't understand and you do not have agency in, right? We are terrible swimmers, right? We think Michael Phelps is still a terrible swimmer, right? Because we do not have fins, we cannot breathe underwater, you know, we're not adapted to cooperate with this medium. We can't do it, right? We're weak. We're powerless in this situation. And then out of the shadows, there is something that takes advantage of that powerlessness, right? And with the sole objective of ending your life for its own, you know, gain. It needs to eat to survive, right? But if you on the receiving end of that, I mean, it's completely terrifying. It's completely horrifying. It's one of the most violent ways to go, because it's just, man, gosh, I'm getting worked up. Like, don't you feel what I'm talking about though? Like, you know, even if you are removed from it, you know, can't you understand that it's very, very different? You know, this is not apes going into the water and suffering the consequences, right? It's a tragedy. It's a very, very traumatic, horrifying and terrifying event when these two worlds meet. You know, the world of the dangerous shark, right, and the world of the human who we relate to, and, you know, this is someone who had career aspirations and a family and goals and a life and a soul, depending on what you believe, and just, man, it's a pretty heavy topic, right? So I wanted to title this episode The Fatal Four, but like I guess this is going to be the Shark Attack episode, you know, because we got to talk about all of it. You know, we're going to mush all of it together. Shark Attack trilogy. This is what this is going to be.